Japan is facing major population decline as we speak, to the point where schools are closing down, towns are placing lifelike dolls on empty streets to simulate human presence, and on top this, a political party promising to seal the borders just won 15 seats in parliament. This is Japan in 2025, a nation caught between extinction and transformation. What's happening here isn't just Japan's problem, it's a preview of our global future. The numbers. Every 60 seconds in Japan, 3 people die, and only 1.3 babies are born. That's 1.7 people vanishing from existence every single minute of every single day. The math is brutal. In 2024, Japan recorded just 688,000 births against 1.6 million deaths. That's twice as many people dying as being born. At this rate, Japan's population will crash from 123 million today to just 87 million by 2070. But here's what makes 2025 the tipping point. Every single person born during Japan's post-war baby boom between 1947 and 1949 is now hitting 75 years old. That's 8 million people simultaneously entering what officials call extreme old age, the phase where medical and care costs skyrocket. Think of it as a demographic avalanche that's been building for decades, and 2025 is when it finally crashes down. The ghost towns. The crisis isn't theoretical anymore. It has a face, and it's haunting. In Ichinono, a town just north of Osaka, elderly residents have started making lifelike dolls and placing them on street corners and in front of empty houses. It's their way of coping with the silence, of pretending their community still breathes. For 20 years, not a single child was born there. Then, in 2024, one baby finally arrived. The entire town celebrated. Gifts appeared at doorsteps. The mayor put up posters. For a brief moment, hope flickered back to life. But Ichinono isn't alone. More than 740 municipalities across Japan are projected to disappear entirely by the end of this century. Schools that once buzzed with children now sit empty. In some regions, there are more adult diapers sold than baby diapers. This isn't dystopian fiction, this is Japan right now. The perfect storm. How did the world's third largest economy sleepwalk into demographic collapse? The roots trace back to Japan's economic miracle, turning into a nightmare. When the bubble economy burst in the 1990s, it didn't just destroy wealth, it destroyed dreams. Wages have been frozen for 3 decades. A young Japanese worker today earns between $17,000 to $20,000 per year, barely enough to survive, let alone start a family. Meanwhile, the traditional matchmaking system called omiai, which for centuries helped Japanese people find partners, crumbled along with everything else. Companies and families stopped playing Cupid. Young people were left to figure out love on their own in a culture that never taught them how. The work culture became toxic beyond recognition. There's even a word for it: karoshi. Death from overwork. People literally work themselves to death, with 14-hour days becoming normal. When you're barely surviving your job, raising children becomes impossible. And childcare costs, they devour nearly half of a typical couple's annual income. Compare that to 30% in the United States, and you start to understand why Japanese families are choosing extinction over financial ruin. The cultural rebellion. But something deeper is happening. Young Japanese people aren't just economically trapped, they're psychologically rejecting parenthood entirely. A new trend called solo living is exploding across Japan. People are getting married to hologram anime characters. They're taking solo trips to Disneyland and even having solo weddings, ceremonies where women marry themselves. When Elon Musk's AI app launched a virtual anime girlfriend in Japan, it shot to #1 on the App Store so fast that servers crashed. Millions of Japanese men downloaded it within days, preferring digital relationships to real ones. This isn't just about money anymore. An entire generation watched their parents struggle through Japan's lost decades, coming home stressed, fighting over finances, barely seeing their children. The trauma runs deep. Many young Japanese people looked at their family life and decided, I don't want to repeat that cycle. Korean women are saying the same thing. refusing to raise children in patriarchal societies where they bear all the responsibility. The birth rate in South Korea has collapsed even further than Japan's, down to 0.7 children per woman. The economic time bomb. The consequences are already detonating across Japan's economy. In 1990, there were 6 working-age people supporting every retiree. By 2050, that ratio will collapse to just 1.5 workers per retiree. Imagine carrying the economic weight of 2/3 of an elderly person on your shoulders for your entire working life. Social security spending has exploded from 7.9% of GDP to over 10%. Healthcare costs have nearly doubled. The country is borrowing against a future that may not exist. Innovation is dying too. The number of patents granted to Japanese researchers has plummeted alongside the shrinking workforce. Fewer young minds mean fewer breakthrough ideas. Japan is aging itself out of technological relevance. Entire industries are pivoting to serve the elderly. Japan's biggest tea company has developed thicker, gel-like versions of their drinks for people who can't swallow properly. Funeral businesses are booming, but even they know their growth is temporary. Eventually, there won't be enough people left to die. The immigration trap. Japan knows the solution. Every economist, every government report, every projection points to the same answer: immigration, lots of it. But here's where the story takes a dark turn. In July 2024, a Vietnamese immigrant named Dam Du Cang broke into a house in Saga Prefecture. He killed a 40-year-old woman and seriously wounded her elderly mother, all for the equivalent of $68. 6 days later, a far-right party called Sansto won 15 seats in parliament, campaigning on Japan First and promising to slam the immigration door shut. The timing was no coincidence. Fear doesn't need facts when it has bodies. Sansto's leader, a former supermarket manager, has built a movement that sees immigration as a foreign conspiracy to destroy Japanese culture. They've even blamed Jewish capital for orchestrating Japan's demographic crisis, despite Japan having virtually no Jewish banking presence. The party now wants to limit the number of foreigners allowed in each municipality and believes integration is impossible. They're not just anti-immigration, they're anti-reality. The tourist trap. But immigration fears aren't the only fuel feeding this nationalist fire. Japan is drowning in tourists. The weak yen has turned Japan into a bargain destination. In 2024, a record 36.9 million visitors flooded the country, a 47% increase from pre-pandemic levels. Tourism is now Japan's second-largest export, bringing in over $100 billion annually. But those tourists are everywhere. Tokyo's subway pushers, workers whose job is literally to shove people into overcrowded trains, are working overtime. Iconic spots like the Mount Fuji Lawson store have been closed off due to overcrowding. Golden Gai bars that once served locals are packed with Instagram influencers. Many Japanese people feel like foreigners in their own country. Prices are rising, but their salaries remain frozen. They're watching foreign visitors spend lavishly while they can barely afford rent. The cruel irony: many Japanese now lump tourists and immigrants together as the same problem. Foreigners invading their space, disrupting their culture, making their lives harder. The impossible choice. Japan faces a choice that no nation should have to make: cultural preservation or national survival. Without massive immigration, Japan's population will halve by the end of this century. The workforce will shrink from 70 million to 49 million by 2050. The tax base will collapse. The social system will implode. But opening the doors wide enough to save the economy would fundamentally transform Japan. Some projections suggest foreign nationals could represent 10% of all residents within 20 years, a psychological earthquake for a nation that takes pride in its homogeneity. The government has quietly started accepting more immigrants anyway. In 2024, the foreign population grew by 10.5%, hitting a record 3.8 million people. They've created new visa categories, extended work permits, and allowed families to stay permanently. But it's too little, too late. And now they're facing political backlash from a population that feels betrayed. The global warning. Japan's crisis isn't isolated. It's the canary in the coal mine for the entire developed world. South Korea's birth rate has crashed to 0.7. China is facing its own demographic cliff as the one-child policy's consequences unfold. European nations are aging rapidly. Even the United States is seeing birth rates plummet below replacement level. Within 50 years, the UN projects there will be more deaths than births globally. The demographic dividend that powered human progress for centuries is ending. What makes Japan's situation unique isn't the problem. It's that they're the first to face it at full scale. They're the test case for whether a modern society can shrink and age gracefully, or whether demographic decline inevitably leads to economic and social collapse. Japan stands at the edge of a cliff, caught between preserving its identity and preserving its existence. The decisions made in the next few years won't just determine Japan's future, they'll provide a roadmap for every other nation heading down this same demographic path. The 2025 problem isn't just about baby boomers turning 75, it's about whether the modern world can adapt to a future with fewer people, older societies, and harder choices than we ever imagined.